There are places on this planet that do more than exist. They breathe, they pulse, they carry memory in their soil and wisdom in their wind. And when you listen closely, truly listen, you realize that some lands speak louder than others. Africa is one of those lands. It is not just a continent, it is a rhythm, a heartbeat, a living story that stretches across time. For millions, Africa is not only the beginning of human life, but the center of human spirit. It is the root of our courage, our creativity, our resilience, and our determination to rise beyond circumstances. When you look at Africa honestly, you don't just see geography, you see the soul of the earth itself. From the deserts of the north to the rainforests of the center, from the mountains of the east to the coasts of the west, Africa has always been a place where humanity learned its greatest lesson. This land taught the world how to build families, how to work the soil, how to tell stories, how to live in harmony, and how to honor community. Every ancient civilization that rose on this soil added a chapter to the story of human spirit. And even those who know very little about the continent cannot deny its impact on the world. The languages we speak, the music we dance to, the wisdom we pass down, the values we protect, all of them carry threads that trace back to Africa's earliest teaching. What makes Africa the center of human spirit is not just its history, but its ability to endure. For thousands of years, this land has survived trials that would have destroyed other places. Empires rose and empires fell, but Africa remained. Borders changed, rulers changed, fortunes changed, but the spirit of the land remained untouched. It endured droughts, invasions, exploitation, and division, yet the heartbeat of the continent kept beating. And even in the darkest periods of human suffering, when millions were taken from their home and scattered across the world, Africa still found a way to live inside them. It lived in their songs, in their memories, in their strength, and in the quiet knowledge that no matter how far they traveled, they were part of something ancient and unbreakable. There is a reason people around the world are drawn to Africa, even if they have never been there. It is a place where the earth feels alive. You can sense something sacred in the air, not religious, but deeply human. The sound of drums is not just music, it is communication. The chanting of elders is not just language, it is preservation. The stories told around the fire are not entertainment, they are bridges connecting generations. Everything holds meaning because nothing is wasted. The land teaches responsibility, humility, and connection. These lessons became the foundation of human spirit. But Africa's spirit is not just found in tradition, it is found in transformation. Throughout history, this land has given birth to some of the world's most remarkable examples of reinvention. Civilizations adapted to climate shifts, changing rivers, new technologies, and new forms of leadership. Communities that once relied only on oral tradition developed vast systems of writing, record-keeping, and scholarship. People who once lived in small clans built cities, universities, and trade routes that connected continents. The human ability to evolve, that unstoppable drive to grow, learn, adapt, and improve, has roots deep in African soil. It is where humanity first learned that the future belongs to those who refuse to stay the same. When we talk about the soul of the earth, we talk about a place that shaped human identity long before nations and borders existed. Africa taught the earliest humans what it meant to survive. It taught them how to care for one another, how to share knowledge, how to honor elders, and how to prepare the next generation for a world they would one day inherit. These values did not disappear with time, they traveled through trade, migration, storytelling, and eventually through the diaspora. To this day, when you see communities thriving through unity, creativity, resilience, and storytelling, you are witnessing Africa's spirit living in places far from the continent itself. There is something incredibly powerful about a place that can define human spirit without forcing itself on the world. Africa does not need to advertise its greatness. Its influence is woven into the DNA of humanity. Scientists trace human origins to African soil. Linguists trace the earliest patterns of speech to African tongues. Artists trace the foundations of rhythm and creativity to African hands. And thinkers trace some of the world's oldest wisdom traditions to African philosophy. When the world looks to Africa, it sees not just the past, but the blueprint of humanity. Yet the most inspiring part of Africa's story is not how it shaped the ancient world. It is how it continues to shape the modern one. Everywhere the diaspora exists, new forms of expression are born, new dialects, new music, new ideas, new movements. This ability to create under pressure, to transform pain into power and struggle into innovation, is a direct reflection of Africa's spirit. The diaspora is often misunderstood as a people separated from their roots, but the truth is the opposite. They are branches that continue to grow no matter where they are planted, and every branch carries the same spirit as the tree. That spirit is courage, it is resilience, it is memory, it is identity, it is the knowledge that even when life pushes you down, there is something inside you that refuses to stay down. That is the soul of Africa. It is the fire that refuses to die. It is the belief that tomorrow can always be better than today. It is the drive that pushes people to build, to create, to survive, and to thrive. And in a world where many have forgotten what it means to stay connected to something deeper than fame, money, or success, Africa reminds us that true strength comes from understanding where you come from and why you matter. You cannot stand on African soil or even learn about it without feeling something shift inside you. It is like discovering a part of yourself that you never knew was missing. It reminds you that you come from survivors, from innovators, from thinkers, from dreamers, from people who endured the unimaginable and still found ways to rise. Their spirit is your inheritance. Their strength is your foundation. Their courage runs in your blood, whether you were born on the continent or descended from those who left it centuries ago. Africa is not limited by geography. It is carried in the heart, and that heart continues to beat. Every child learning their mother tongue, every community preserving traditions, every artist using ancestral rhythm, every scholar uncovering ancient knowledge, these are signs that the soul of the earth is alive and well. It is a reminder that Africa's story is not finished, it is still being written. And every one of us has a role in how that story unfolds. When you understand that Africa is the center of human spirit, you begin to see yourself differently. You begin to realize that you are not small, not forgotten, not disconnected. You are part of a legacy stretching back to the origins of time. You begin to understand that your struggles do not define you, your response does. You begin to understand that your power does not come from your circumstances, but from your identity. You are connected to a lineage of strength. You come from a people who learned how to rise again and again. You come from a spirit strong enough to endure anything. And once you understand that life can never break you the same way again, Africa teaches us that the human spirit is not fragile. It is fierce. It is unstoppable. It survives exile, oppression, hunger, drought, war, and division. It survives misunderstanding, misrepresentation, and miseducation. It survives time itself. And when it rises boldly, it rises loudly, it rises without apology. The soul of Africa teaches you that you too have the right to rise, to be bold, to be yourself, to grow, to heal, to build, to dream beyond limits. The world may not always recognize Africa's influence, but the earth does, because Africa is where humanity first stood up, took a breath, looked around, and began the journey that continues today. Africa is not just the beginning of human life, it is the foundation of human spirit. And as long as that spirit stays alive in us, the world will never lose its direction. The soul of the earth lives in every person who refuses to give up, who chooses hope over fear, and who understands that greatness is not something you chase, it is something you inherit. Africa is not just a place, it is a pulse that lives in every human being, a silent rhythm that beats beneath the surface of our lives even when we are unaware of it. When people speak of Africa, they often reduce it to geography, politics, or modern struggles, forgetting that its true meaning cannot be contained within the lines of a map. Africa is the first breath of humanity, the soil that cradled the earliest footsteps, the cradle where human spirit opened its eyes and learned how to survive, create, imagine, and communicate. To understand Africa is to understand the beginning of human courage and the foundation of human resilience. Every instinct we have today to build, to protect, to love, to dream, to push forward despite difficulty is part of a long inheritance stretching far beyond our individual lives. That inheritance begins on a continent where people learn to rise from the earth, walk upright, understand the sky, shape tools from stone, and eventually shaped civilizations from nothing but thought, effort, and belief. When you recognize Africa as the birthplace of human spirit, you realize something profound about yourself. Your strength did not appear randomly. It wasn't something you woke up with one morning, or something you built only through personal effort. It is part of a deeper legacy. You carry the endurance of people who survived shifting climates, unpredictable landscapes, and the test of time. You carry the creativity of those who carved stories into rock, painted memories onto cave walls, and used language as both a tool of survival and a vessel of identity. You carry the adaptability of communities that learn to thrive in forests, deserts, mountains, and river valleys. Within you is a historical memory older than nations, older than written history, older than everything we define as civilization. That memory shapes you even when you do not think about it, guiding you in moments of pressure and revealing your potential in moments when you feel empty. Every person walking the earth today carries a spark of that ancient fire. It is the fire that taught early humans to think beyond instinct and reach for meaning. It is the fire that made people look at their surroundings and decide they could build something stronger, something safer, something more beautiful. It is the fire that pushed our ancestors to explore, to migrate, to learn from challenges instead of surrendering to them. This fire does not extinguish with time. It is passed from generation to generation, sometimes quietly, sometimes loudly, but always steadily. And no matter your background or culture, that fire is part of you because your story, like the human story itself, began on African soil. When you feel lost, disconnected, or powerless, remember that the earliest humans overcame obstacles far greater than anything we face today. They had no modern tools, no advanced technology, no global network, yet they found ways to survive and flourish. They relied on instinct sharpened by experience, community strengthened by cooperation, and wisdom gathered through generations of observing nature. This same instinct, this same communal spirit, and this same wisdom now lives in your bloodstream. That is why human beings continue to rise after failure, continue to rebuild after destruction, and continue to search for purpose even in the darkest moments. We are wired for resilience because resilience was necessary from the very beginning. Africa's pulse shows up in the way we form families, in the way we seek belonging, in the way we tell stories to explain who we are and where we come from. It shows up in the universal desire to connect with something greater than ourselves, whether through creativity, culture, history, or personal growth. It shows up in the rhythm of our speech, the cadence of our emotions, the courage to keep going even when the world seems indifferent. These are not traits we invented individually. They are traits passed down from ancestors who refused to surrender to the harshness of their environment. Even if you have never touched African soil, part of your spirit is shaped by the triumphs and struggles that took place there long before the world formed the divisions it knows today. People often search for strength outside themselves, believing that success comes from other individuals, institutions, or circumstances. But the truth is that the deepest form of strength comes from remembering who you are and where you come from. When you understand that you come from the same lineage that pioneered humanity itself, your view of your own abilities transforms. You stop seeing challenges as signs of weakness and start seeing them as invitations to rise. You stop believing you are alone and start realizing you are part of an ancient chain of survivors, thinkers, builders, and innovators. This awareness does not make your problems vanish, but it gives you the mindset needed to overcome them. The pulse of Africa also teaches us about identity. Identity is not just your name, your language, your nationality, or your experiences. It is the invisible foundation beneath all those things. It is the spiritual inheritance that shaped your ancestors and now shapes you. Identity is carried in the way you learn, the way you adapt, the way you persevere. Every time you choose growth over fear, every time you choose effort over excuses, you echo the spirit of those who made survival possible in the first place. And the more you embrace that heritage, the more you align with the strength that has been yours since the beginning of humanity. Africa is not simply the beginning of physical humanity. It is the beginning of human spirit, that internal engine that pushes you forward when you are tired, that voice that whispers that you are capable of more, that sense of responsibility that makes you want to improve your life and the lives of others. Human spirit is what allowed our ancestors, to look at a barren piece of land and imagine a future harvest, to look at the darkness of night and imagine new possibilities, to look at hardship and imagine transformation. That same capacity belongs to you. You inherited the ability to envision something better, to create beyond your limitations, to rise above your struggles and to build a future that honors the past while shaping the next generation. Understanding this changes how you walk through life. It gives you confidence without arrogance. It gives you humility without weakness. It gives you direction without confusion. Africa is not just part of human history, it is part of your personal story, and when you embrace that truth, you step into a deeper awareness of your own worth and potential. You begin to see that your existence is not an accident, your strength is not temporary, and your spirit is not fragile. You are the continuation of a legacy as old as humanity itself. A living testimony that the fire of the human spirit never dies. It simply moves from one generation to the next, waiting for someone strong enough to recognize it, respect it, and carry it forward. Every time we talk about resilience, courage, or the human ability to push through adversity, we are really talking about a story that began long before modern nations existed, long before borders were drawn, and long before history books were written. That story began in Africa. It began with people who faced the raw world with nothing but their minds, their hands, their instincts, and their will to survive. They lived in landscapes that demanded strength, creativity, adaptation, and unity. They endured climates that shifted without warning, animals stronger and faster than them, and environments that tested them every single day. Yet instead of being defeated by those challenges, they evolved in response to them. They built tools, created strategies, formed communities, and developed ways of thinking that allowed them not just to survive, but thrive. This is where human resilience began, not as an idea or a concept, but as a way of life. That resilience is not trapped in the past. It lives in your DNA, your choices, and your reactions to adversity. Every time you decide to keep going when you feel like giving up, you are echoing the same spirit that helped ancient Africans navigate a world that offered no guarantee. When you rise after falling, you carry the same fire that pushed humanity forward through droughts, migrations, storms, and uncertainty. When you choose hope instead of fear, you are not being naive. You are honoring a legacy of survival that stretches back hundreds of thousands of years. People sometimes assume strength is something you earn later in life, but the truth is the human blueprint was written with strength already inside it. Those first communities had no choice but to conquer their circumstances. They learned endurance the hard way. They learned flexibility by necessity. They learned cooperation because isolation meant danger. Through these challenges, they created patterns of resilience that still influence how humans respond to struggle today. This is why you can walk through situations you never imagined yourself surviving. This is why you can recover from heartbreak, loss, failure, disappointment, or betrayal, because your spirit is older than any challenge you face. Your strength is not new, it is inherited. You are not starting from zero, you are continuing a story that began before time was measured. That is why the world cannot break you permanently. You were built by generations who faced a level of hardship we can hardly imagine. You are the product of victories that were not written down but lived out. The blood in your body has memory, not mystical memory but biological memory, psychological memory, ancestral resilience shaped through millennia of survival and adaptation. You don't need to be told to be strong, you just need to remember who you come from. Strength is not a skill you acquire, it is a condition you awaken. The challenges of life today may be different from the dangers faced by early humans, but the inner tools needed to overcome them remain the same. When your life feels heavy, remember that your ancestors carried entire worlds on their backs. When your future feels uncertain, remember that uncertainty is the original landscape of the human journey. When you feel alone, remember that your existence is the result of communities that protected each other, taught each other, raised each other, and believed in each other. You are never truly alone because you stand on the shoulders of people who believed in tomorrow even when tomorrow wasn't promised. So when life pressures you, don't shrink, expand. When fear whispers to you, don't surrender. Stand tall. When doubt fills your mind, remind yourself that resilience isn't something you're trying to become, it's something you already are. You don't escape adversity, you transform through it. You don't run from difficulty, you rise within. This is what humans have always done, and this is what you are built to do. The world may look different now, the problems may be wrapped in new forms, but the human spirit, your spirit, is still guided by the ancient resilience that originated in Africa. And as long as you carry that within you, there is no challenge that can destroy you, no storm that can drown you, no setback that can define you. You are the continuation of the world's oldest strength, and every step you take forward is proof that the human story is still alive in you. When you understand your origins, you understand your power, because there is something transformative about knowing the ground you come from and the greatness that shaped the path before you. When you trace humanity's footsteps back to the earliest breath of civilization, you discover that the beginning of human story is not scattered randomly across the world. It is rooted deeply in African soil. And when you absorb that truth, it changes the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you think, and the way you carry yourself. It reminds you that you are not an accident, not a mistake, not a background character in history, but a direct continuation of something ancient, intelligent, innovative, and purposeful. When you understand that the earliest languages, the earliest systems of thought, the earliest symbols, the earliest spiritual expressions, the earliest migrations, and the earliest breakthroughs in human problem solving came from Africa, you begin to see yourself differently. You stop shrinking. You stop apologizing. You stop underestimating your own capacity. You begin to realize that greatness is not something you chase. It is something you inherit. It is built into your DNA, woven into your ancestry, encoded into the very structure of who you are. It is not a gift someone handed you. It is a birthright. There is a strength that rises when you look back and understand that your lineage is older than empires, older than borders, older than the systems that tried to redefine you. There is power in knowing that humanity learned how to think, how to speak, how to build, how to farm, how to organize, how to heal, how to worship, and how to dream on African soil long before the rest of the world caught up. There is power in knowing that the earliest astronomers, philosophers, musicians, artists, architects, explorers, and healers emerged from a continent that continues to influence global culture even when the world tries to pretend otherwise. This knowledge becomes a mirror that shows you your potential when the world tries to show you your limitations. It becomes armor that protects your confidence when society attempts to erase your contributions. It becomes fuel that drives your ambition when life tries to convince you to shrink. Because when you know your origins, your inner posture changes. You walk with a different awareness, a different dignity, a different understanding of who you are and what you are capable of. Too many people move through life with no idea of the strength behind them, no idea of the brilliance they inherit, no idea of the vast story they are continuing, and because they don't know their story, they accept a smaller life than the one they were created for. They accept labels given by people who don't know them. They accept limitations taught by systems that were never designed to empower them. But the moment you recognize that your origins are not rooted in inferiority but in innovation, not in weakness but in wisdom, not in darkness but in discovery, everything within you begins to shift. You begin to act with intentionality. You begin to seek knowledge instead of ignoring it. You begin to pursue excellence instead of settling for survival. You begin to operate with the understanding that you come from a people who shaped the foundation of the world. And if they could endure, create, rise, and transform entire civilizations, then you are more than capable of transforming your own life. When you understand your origins, life stops feeling random. Your story gains context. Your actions gain purpose. Your dreams gain direction. You become connected to something bigger than your struggles. You begin to understand that the challenges you face are not proof of weakness. They are invitations for growth. You realize that endurance is part of your heritage. Resilience is part of your identity, and brilliance is part of your spiritual structure. You carry the same potential that built nations, the same imagination that shaped languages, the same courage that survived migrations, the same intelligence that mapped the stars and understood the earth before books existed. And the moment you know that, you stop waiting for permission to be great. You stop thinking you need external validation to pursue your destiny. You stop letting fear hold your future captive. Your origins are not chains, they are reminders that you are connected to a story that began long before you and will continue long after you. You are not standing at the end of your history, you are standing in the middle of it. And when you finally accept that you come from a lineage of builders, thinkers, healers, warriors, visionaries, and creators, you unlock a level of confidence that cannot be taught in schools or given by society. It comes from within. It rises naturally because it is ancestral. It is ancient. It is yours. So when you understand your origins, you understand your power, not because history gives you identity, but because history reminds you that you were never powerless to begin with. Knowing where humanity began is not just an academic fact, it's a key that unlocks a deeper understanding of who you are and what you can become. It tells you that you are part of something vast, extraordinary, and unshakable. And when you truly understand that, you stop living small. You start living awakened. You start living with intention, vision, and fire. You start living like someone who finally remembers where they come from and who they were always destined to be.